All right, so I cannot believe that I am doing this. This is a story I never thought I was going to share with anybody, but I'm about to break down the time Toyota approached my very Tesla-focused YouTube channel with an interesting video idea. If you're new here, I'm Kim Java and I have EV videos every single week. Right now I have a really interesting DIY series going on, so make sure that you are subscribed and you like this video, and let's go. So we need to start in the early 2000s. So going back to around roughly that time period, there's 15-year-old me, Kim, and I am trying to buy my very first car. My dad recommends Toyota and Honda because they'll probably have something which within my budget, which at the time was not very much money, but they're reliable cars. They go over 100,000 miles. So I also remember seeing Hyundai on the road for the very first time during this whole time period, and 15-year-old me was pretty ignorant. So I actually thought that Hyundai was a knockoff version of Honda. And I would refuse to even look at that vehicle, which is so embarrassing at this point to even say out loud, but here we are talking about it. And 20 years later, you know, give or take a few, here we are. And Hyundai is actually rocking the electric car market, but where's Honda? Or Toyota for that matter. So even Elon Musk seems to be a fan of Hyundai. He recently tweeted, Hyundai is doing pretty well. And you never really know with Elon if he's being sarcastic or not, but then Hyundai replied back to his tweet asking him to check out their new Ioniq 6. So clearly Hyundai has come a long way, and a big part of that is how they have embraced EVs, and they've sort of been able to leapfrog those dominant automakers like Honda and Toyota. Where did they go wrong? Well, there's two words: hydrogen fuel. All right, guys, you're gonna learn a lot about me in today's video, but before I share this story, I wanna thank Ritual for sponsoring this portion of today's video. So before I was an EV enthusiast, I was actually a working nutritionist, and the kind of stuff I looked for in any supplement is, are they science-backed, and how do they stack up against other leading direct-to-consumer supplements, and Ritual is the real deal. So their new product called Symbiotic Plus is a daily 3-in-1 prebiotic, probiotic, and postbiotic to help support gut, digestive, and immune health. Each capsule is designed with delayed release technology to help reach your colon, not your stomach, and each biotic has a clinical study matched to the dose. Ritual uses two of the world's most clinically studied strains of probiotics with 11 billion CFUs for digestive support. It's a single nested minty capsule for streamlined gut support. Ritual is offering my viewers a 20% off your first month by using code KJAVA20. That's 20% off during your first month by going to ritual.com/KJAVA20 and using code KJAVA20 at checkout. All right, let's get back to it. Okay, so I've never shared this story publicly, but since I'm in a storytelling mood and there was actually no NDA ever signed, I'm going to go ahead and share this with you guys. So back in 2018, Tesla's kind of in its darkest days right here. It's going through production hell with the Model 3, and we are about a year in on our channel. And during that time, there's not a lot of people making videos about Tesla on the web, but we were. Hopefully you guys are all subscribed. I know some of you guys are even longtime subscribers from back then. But during that time period, Toyota emails me and they have this idea for this video where we are going to race our Tesla across California against their Mirai, which is a hydrogen fuel car. The deal was they wanted the Tesla to go side by side with their Mirai. We were going to be going from San Francisco to Los Angeles, and they were really going to show how quickly the Mirai could fill up with the hydrogen fuel, and the Tesla took longer to fuel up, so that it was just kind of showing that Teslas were slow compared to the hydrogen fuel. However, I was not super keen on this whole idea. It seemed a little bit scripted. They definitely wanted Tesla to fail. They wanted to show how quick their Mirai could fuel up against Tesla and that hydrogen fuel was the way to go. So I'm thinking at some point they probably realized it was not great to work specifically with a Tesla YouTuber. because during this time period, that's when they started ghosting me. They were kind of in the news a bunch because they were having issues with their hydrogen fuel stations. They couldn't get them up and running consistently during this time period. And it's kind of funny because if you think about it, hydrogen is the most abundant element on Earth, but at the same time, they just could not get their stations up and running. Nothing ever happened with this project. So Elon also has some very strong views on fuel cells.
I don't want to turn this into a debate on hydrogen fuel cells because I just think that they're extremely silly. It's just very difficult to make hydrogen and store it and use it in a car. Hydrogen is an energy storage mechanism. It's not a source of energy.
And he has not held back at all. In 2020, there was a tweet where he said, fuel cells equals fuel cells. And he also went on to tweet, agreed hydrogen fuels make no sense. So why is Elon so skeptical on fuel cells? So the US EPA describes hydrogen fuel cell EVs as being similar to electric cars in that they use an electric motor instead of an internal combustion engine to power the wheels. But the key difference is that battery EVs need to be charged by plugging into a charging point, whereas fuel cell EVs use hydrogen gas and generate their electricity on board. And Elon isn't alone when it comes to being unconvinced of hydrogen cars. So last year, Herbert Diess, the CEO of Volkswagen, tweeted, "It's time for politicians to accept science. Green hydrogen is needed for steel, chemical, aero, and should not end up in cars. Far too expensive, inefficient, slow, and difficult to roll out and transport." The biggest players to produce fuel cell cars have been Toyota and Honda, but BMW has also done some testing on European roads, saying fuel cell cars have the long-term potential to supplement internal combustion engines. And Toyota says fuel cell EVs give customers a zero-emission option with performance they expect and no change to daily routines. So Honda is so all in on their fuel cell EVs that they just announced in 2024 they're going to start production of their fuel cell EVs. So it does not look like Toyota or Honda are even going to try to catch up in the whole EV game. They're just going to try to make their hydrogen cell EVs work out. So I think it's kind of weird because at one point, they had the Prius and they were like one of the leaders with all this, but they've just kind of let that all go and they've decided to focus on their hydrogen cars. So I'm curious what you guys think about that. Do you think that hydrogen is the way to go, or do you think just, the regular EVs are the way to go? So Toyota is the world's largest car maker, and they sold more than 10.5 million cars in 2021. They had a major head start and were the first to make an eco-friendly car with the Prius, and it went mainstream. Celebs were proudly driving it everywhere. And in 97, they made the RAV4 EV way before Tesla Model S. They even purchased a stake in Tesla in 2010 and collaborated on a second-gen RAV4 EV, but they sold all their shares in Tesla in 2017, which I'm sure someone at Toyota probably regrets now. But the innovation just isn't really there anymore, and they now have just one EV in production with a pretty funky name. It's the BZ4X, and they've only sold 232 units in the US last year and about 1,600 globally. So Toyota just announced that it doesn't expect to launch its first blank slate EV from the ground up until 2027 or 28. So at the rate EVs are growing in market share, they'll be lucky to retain a tenth of its 10 million unit market share at that time frame. So there's also some interesting happenings if you dig deeper with Toyota. I feel like they might come at me for saying all this, but they are right up there with Chevron and Exxon for the world's largest anti-climate lobbyists. And Greenpeace even put Toyota at the bottom of its list for decarbonization efforts. There was a recent study and it talked about those Japanese staple car makers, Honda, Toyota, and Nissan, and it showed how unprepared they are for this transition to EVs. They actually came out in last place, all three of them, compared to all the competition out there. Right now, Honda has the E91. I think that's how you say it. It sounds kind of like one of Elon Musk's kids, but that's probably the only thing they have in common with Tesla because it is their sole EV coming in 2024. And Toyota, of course, is kind of in the same boat with their BZ4X. According to the study, by 2029, only 14% of Toyota's global fleet is set to be EVs. And Honda is a little better at 18%, followed by Nissan at 22%. Meanwhile, Ford and VW will be at 36 and 43% respectively. So unfortunately for Toyota, the study shows that hydrogen just isn't working. So the public consciousness barely seems to register hydrogen as an alternative, and the data just supports it. So across all automakers, hydrogen cars like the Mirai will account for only 0.1% of global car production by 2029. So it's just kind of interesting how things have come full circle. So the Hyundai and the Kias, which were not cool cars back then, now after almost 2 decades, really have a clear lead in the whole EV space compared to Honda and Toyota. So the same thing can be said for Panasonic, since they just made inexpensive, imitative tech for other companies, but they embraced the change and disrupted the status quo with their fridges, TVs, and phones, and now they have a pretty strong foothold. So now we have Kia's EV6 that will be on the road soon, and the Hyundai Ioniq 6 looks really good. I'm really excited actually about that vehicle, and their marketing has been awesome. We've seen it with all the recent Super Bowl ads, and Hyundai Ioniq 5 was also all over Vegas when I was there for CES in January, and it was doing autonomous ride shares, so they have a lot going on. I will wrap up this whole video by telling you guys what my first car purchase was. It was a Toyota Paseo, which also happens to be another failed Toyota, and here's a picture of me. You can see some of my first car mods, which were some leopard dice in the mirror and leopard seat covers. Please don't judge. You know, I was 16 years old. It was pretty bad, pretty horrible. But if you guys have made it this far, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Make sure you're subscribed to our channel and you watch all these new DIY videos coming out. I promise I have better car mods in these videos. And check out our website, itskimjava.com, for some cool Tesla and EV inspired merch. Also, if you're in Southern California at the end of July and want to swing by and say hello, I plan on being at the Tesla Takeover event in San Luis Obispo the weekend of July 29th. A few other Tesla and EV influencers will be there, as well as May Musk as the keynote speaker. So check out the link below to find out how you can get tickets to the event. And we will catch you guys all next time. Toyota, of course, is kind of in the same boat with their BZ4X. So I have never shared this story publicly, but since I'm in a storytelling mood and there is no DNA.
NDA. Dyslexia.
All right. We'll save that one for the bloopers roll. Okay.